Hello, everyone. Today we have a topic about mixed reality and the games and the metaverse, what we really want. So today we have three gentlemen here for our panel. Maybe let's have them have a brief introduction about themselves. Maybe start with Shane.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shane. I'm the COO of Ethereum Towers. We're a metaverse project, and a little background on myself. I was in sort of your traditional business to business sales for 11 plus years. I was a software salesperson, did deals with like NASA, US Chamber of Commerce, amongst others, and kind of got into sort of NFTs and crypto. Crypto back in 2015, 2016, and then NFTs in early 2021, and really excited to discuss sort of metaverse and sort of that mixed reality here in today's panel.
Great, thank you for having me. So maybe next we can have the next gentleman email to have a brief introduction about himself.
Okay, so like Shan, I took part in the early stage of ICO or digital assets development, but I was a banker and I had the regional IT of a German bank for 20-something years. Okay, technically not 20-something years, but the last 17 years with the bank. So I treat myself as the traditional banker who being the pioneer to discover the true value of the crypto side. So I'm the founders of a few associations in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area mainly. So I'm very excited to share my opinions about the development of the metaverse with the experts.
Great to have you. And then the next gentleman is Dele. Could you briefly just give us an introduction about yourself?
Sure. So Dele Atanda, I'm CEO of Metamedia and MetaMe. My interest in the metaverse actually started back in 2006 with Second Life, where I remember building a meeting space for Diageo, where I used to head up digital at the time, and we're all coming and meeting in Second Life, and it was obviously very exciting as an indication of where the tech was going, where Web3 was. But I got particularly interested in blockchain through data. And I set up an NGO called the Internet Foundation back in 2013, basically focused on digital rights and privacy and data ownership. And it became clear that blockchain was going to become a really important technology in enabling that. So MetaMe is a company that really does that. We focus on what we call clean data, a clean data ecosystem, which is basically where people have full sovereignty, ownership, and control of their data, and created a new type of data information asset towards that end. But in the metaverse space, Metamedia basically is a crypto media company, and we started a crypto comic franchise, which is around data. It's a science fiction story around data sovereignty and data ownership. And it's a story about the battle for the soul of the metaverse. So it's a comic saga that's delivered as NFTs, and then we're building a game, which in itself is a metaverse game and a metaverse platform in that sense. So very much deeply in the thick of it on the metaverse side these days.
Welcome. Well, metaverse has been a hot topic lately, and it's been everybody's topic. So maybe I can have each one of you to just say a few your idea of what exactly a metaverse should be. I guess maybe we can start by saying that.
Let me try to answer your question. So I transformed myself from a traditional bank's worker into a sort of scholar, because I'm not happy with the development of the general public about the understanding of digital assets, about the understanding of the metaverse initiatives. So in the past 5 to 6 years, I try my very best to teach, so that at the end of the day, some renowned university recognized the task I did, and I became an adjunct professor in the City University teaching fintech. Why? Because the traditional people, they have a wrong concept about the development of internet first, and now the development of the metaverse. Of course, to internet, people believe that you are raising fund, and then you are the .com company, then your valuation will be much higher than the rest. So I'm taking the same roadmap as the pioneer. So ended up we got a big .com burst. And now these days, the same Metaverse, okay, is the where we can get a lot of funding like Roblox, but you know that it cannot sustain in such a way. So in my eyes, I just want to use these phenomenons that people crazy about that buzzword solely because there's a funding source, there's a story that's about the future, and people would love to speculate. So I'm not going to describe what actually it is, but I leave it to the other gentleman to give you about the detail. But I just want to emphasize that this kind of fundraising activity distorted, the real meaning of the metaverse to the general public.
Thank you very much for your opinion. I guess I agree on some of the points, because some people just took advantage of this whole hype and try to do some rug pull or just try to do some scam. But just like the .com burst, some company went away, but a lot of them stayed, became very large, like Amazon. So I think, in my opinion, I think Metaverse is still going to be in the future, but it's not as people think. It's not coming as soon as people think. I think so. Maybe Dele, do you want to take the?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so I hear a lot of people say that the metaverse is anything digital. Like if you're on your phone, that's the metaverse. I don't think that that's a really useful definition. I think if the word is to have meaning, it has to have meaning. I mean, I think there's the internet, which is the internet when you're on the internet. But I think the metaverse is essentially a three-dimensional sort of experience of the internet. It's an immersive internet. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's just VR or AR, but I do think that it is volumetric. I mean, I think holographic technology is metaverse technology, but it's volumetric. It's sort of the volumetric web. I think that if you look at the internet, the killer application of the internet is the World Wide Web. And I think I find the term Web3 a bit precarious, but I think that it's more like Internet 2 that we're at. And I think that the metaverse could potentially be the killer application of Internet 2. That's not to say that the metaverse is necessarily decentralized. I think that's another assumption that people make, that is not necessarily true. And it's probably going to be more practical for it to be semi-centralized, at least in the short term. But I think that, it potentially is the killer application of the next wave of the internet, effectively.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your opening. What do you think, Shane?
I think Dele kind of hit the nail right on the head, so to speak. In terms of like the metaverse itself, I've also heard crazy things like it's whatever you're kind of staring at when it comes to like the web. I'm sorry, that's just not the case. Because then I could, potentially be looking at a book, and is that a metaverse? Listen, there does need to be a little more substance to it. For myself, anyways, as I look to sort of the future of metaverses, etc., I think over time it'll be sort of he says it's kind of the killer for web 2 so to speak. I think it'll actually become sort of like the killer for social media. I think you're going to see actually a massive shift from, Twitter Spaces, Facebook, etc., potentially over into metaverses, versus people spending time on Twitter. They might be able to go meet up in some special, hangout or club space within a specific metaverse, where you can find like-minded individuals such as yourself. So yeah, I think Dele kind of kind of stole the words out of my mouth a little bit there. Obviously, as we see sort of metaverses begin to grow and grow and grow, we're going to see a bunch of much more immersive experiences is kind of the best way of putting it. And I did love your Second Life story. Who didn't do Second Life? Who didn't do Sims? All those games that almost felt you became ingrained in them. It's kind of my beginnings as well. But yeah,
I started it with Doom 2. Way before Windows was invented. So that immersive experience, already there, way before Windows.
Yeah.
Very true.
Right. And also, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys play games, but like a lot of existing Web 2 games, they are already in their way is a metaverse itself, but it's just not on a blockchain or decentralized way. But what do you guys think about like the technology of blockchain and that NFTs? How they are they like? I think they are a great technology invention that will enable a lot of things to change from the way how we maybe even consume music, consume movies, or just even interact with each other in the virtual world. So maybe I can, have you guys to share your thoughts on, what do you guys think about the NFTs and the blockchains and cryptos?
Yeah, let me try again. About my opinion about Web3. We talk about Web3. When it was introduced, there were no blockchain. But if we marry Web3 with blockchain, what does it mean? What does blockchain mean? Blockchain means decentralization of trust, and then value flow without intermediaries. So that means, say, if I work hard and play hard and build a lot of beautiful objects in a Web 2 kind of arcade. Unfortunately, sometimes if I got a sanction, from whatever country, or the owner of that particular arcade switch off my user account, then I lost everything. But in the true metaverse, so if we engage the concept of Web3 with the help of blockchain, so that means whatever I built, I can nearly guarantee that I can own that forever, because I'm no longer have to trust a country, I no longer have to trust a company, but a community. So if I believe in that community, then I join that world, and then I can be there, all the time without worry about losing my properties. So that's one important thing that that blockchain can increase or create a true Web3 environment for all of us.
Okay, thank you. But I think it's true up to some point. But for example, like the sandbox, even though you own the land, but if sandbox the system is shut down, even you own the land, you cannot use it, right? So I think there's still a way by the time we really get to this sort of decentralization or metaverse. Maybe what we see right now is not the real true metaverse. Maybe it's not
up to that level. You are right, but it is slightly better. That the kind, say, like if I make a lot of noise to the government, and then my YouTube account got switched off. So as long as YouTube is still there, I can still have my property, available to the general public. But as your opinion, that if Sandbox close down, so that's a different kind of risk. But what I worry about is that it's not that community making a decision whether I can continue to voice out. It is in the current development of the metaverse, I still can sell my piece of land in Sandbox, but not within the system. For example, Facebook within the system like TikTok.
I mean, it's a good point you make, actually, and I really agree with Shane's point that social media and social platforms are really, the metaverse is going to transform those, disrupt them, because it's a place where you can actually socialize online. But I mean, it's an interesting conundrum when you get to the detail of it, because I agree. I think that, and particularly when you think about it in the context of social experiences, it's important that people own their experiences, that people own their information, they own their assets. So NFTs as a gateway for the metaverse is truly disruptive. Now, in the sort of hybrid metaverse state that I think is practical for where we are now, there's a difference between owning the environment versus owning the assets. Now, to your point about land, for example, in Sandbox and the like, it is still a system, right? So I think what we're really for this to become really meaningful in this decentralized way that we like to talk about, then assets have to be interoperable. You need interoperability of assets between different metaverses and metaverse platforms effectively. I think once we have interoperability, then you can basically bring different types of assets, and that will start with like in-game inventory, avatars, objects, and the like. But eventually you should even be able to bring like an environment like land that you have in one metaverse to another. That's an interesting concept, and there's a lot of creativity that can be done in that sense. But I do think that it's a little bit of a problem in a sense, because so many of the metaverses right now are focused on selling land, and I don't know that that's actually the smart play. I think the smart play is more about services, and games get that right. You're in a game to play the game, because it's much easier to have interoperability between game assets and the like. I call it outside in versus inside out. Outside in is trying to start from land, inside is starting from services. So I think if you can own services, applications, assets, then you have the framework for a strong decentralized model, and you can have semi-centralized environments that people can move in and out of and between and around.
Yeah, to kind of go on what Dele says, where interoperability is obviously a huge thing, and there are actually currently companies that are working on sort of that particular piece. So for example, like avatar systems, Ready Player Me is one up and coming name, especially in the blockchain. They've been around in sort of Unity development forever, but they've started to realize that interoperability in metaverses is going to be a huge potential play. So anything that does use sort of that Unity engine, they have a avatar that's ready to rock and roll. It's been animation rigged, it can do all the facial expressions, you name it. So that particular piece is big. For me, NFT ownership is so important. Being able to verify that ownership on sort of blockchain is obviously something that's massive. You go from Web 1, which was sort of that read-only, Web 2, read-write, and now you're read-write, interact, and earn. You're taking the power away from sort of the companies that are making money off of your data, selling it to whomever, and you're putting it right back in your own pocket, right? So being able to have sort of that immersive experience where you own the assets that are associated back to your particular piece of land or whatever it is obviously huge. And the one thing I do like to point out is oftentimes right now, people are using sort of metaverse land as purely investment land. And I hate to break it to a lot of people, but investors do not make great builders. So your environment is going to be barren.
Yeah.
Barren.
It's in real life the same. Yeah.
That's just it, right? Like investors make really awful builders. So right now, a lot of lands are, for the most part, extremely barren. There's not a whole bunch going on with it. They don't know how to use the land yet. So it's going to be interesting the next 3 to 5 years to see exactly what gets put out that kind of changes that landscape.
Yeah. I guess until all the individual metaverses out there are connected to each other, just like the internet, World Wide Web, all connected. Until then, I think it will be exciting to see how it's gonna evolve, the whole this metaverse theme.
I agree, and I just wanted to jump in on something that Shane said there as well, because it's there are assumptions that investors are making on land acquisitions, like, for example, that proximity is important. If I have a piece of land next to a Bored Ape Yacht Club, suddenly it's valuable, but that actually doesn't make sense. It's not real, right? What relevance is the proximity of Google to the proximity of Amazon, right? It's the web. I can go from any place to any place. And even though it's an immersive space, and yes, people will walk around, but people will be able to teleport, like in games, from any place to any place. So I think a lot of the bets that people are making on these land acquisitions are misled, because if you don't actually have some core value for being there, it's meaningless.
Yeah, there is something to be said, though, to proximity based. And it's not necessarily that you're next to somebody really good, but if, let's say, you are a family friendly brand, let's say it's Disney, and then it is still the internet, it is still a place where some nefarious things take place, and let's say somebody next to them builds something less than family friendly, and parents walk outside and they're taking their kid to the Disney spot or whatever it happens to be, and they walk right next to that less than ideal situation, or that less than ideal storefront, right? So there's still a little bit of proximity that needs to be taken into account. But yeah, like that's one thing I do stress to people. If it can be hidden away from sort of the environment, fantastic. However, there still needs to be some. You still need to have some like caution when it comes to buying land. Go check it out first, please.
Good point. But it does throw up interesting opportunities as well, right?
Yeah.
You could potentially have things like that are invisible unless you're old enough or age appropriate in that kind of sense as well. So I agree. I mean, I think it's not that proximity is meaningless, more that it's different, and that you need to think about it in different ways.
It is just one of the many directories, many types of transport system, in real life. But don't count on proximity only, for the price. It doesn't make sense. I totally agree with you. If we have only this type of so-called proximity between a virtual environment, I don't get it either.
Yeah, and also the proximity will always change, just like COVID, right? With the COVID, all the cities, people move to suburbs, right? That's more valuable nowadays. So I think everything will change.
Will change, and change much faster than the real life. So in the old days, I think you might know one place called Guizhou, where they host the telescope, the largest telescope to space. So in the old days, those hilly area, we believe that this is not a good place. But now it's better because we can make a lot of tunnels, we can build a speed train. So those hilly area become the best place to live in, because you won't see the mill, you won't see the crazy skyscrapers. So those hills separate the villages from each other. So the good become the bad, and the bad become the good. So, I think the development of the metaverse will change the, maybe the possibility. We will have a different, usability or a different measurement to the distance in the future.
Right. Maybe I will want to ask another question to everyone. Do you think the movie like the Ready Player One will be the future, or what we gonna, the metaverse that we are going to experience?
You know what? That is actually the one movie that I always tell people to watch when it comes to potentials for metaverses. Do I think it'll be identical? I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. Who knows, though? At the rate that technology is changing, there is endless possibilities. Do I think where you essentially live your entire life in this immersive world online? I don't think so. I think people still do need sort of that real human connection. But what do I know? If you would ask me, 20 years ago, what I would be doing today, and if I would have told you that I was, building a metaverse, I would have told you that you're crazy. Or what is a metaverse? Probably would start there. But here we are. I'm not going to rule out any possibilities, but I still think that a little bit of human interaction is something that people still do need.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as a species, we've been around for a pretty long time, right? And, even in our pre-human states, social is a key thing about mental health and well-being. Now, yes, like we're having this call now, right? Technology enables us to socialize and gather in ways that hitherto were not possible, but the real world is, we're still analog creatures. This is, for the time being, at least, we are still very much analog creatures. So I think there's always the physical real world, if you will always have its needs. And I think we will always have our needs for being human beings in that regard. I think it's the metaverse will become just, more of this medium that we use to experience, communicate, socialize, engage, entertain ourselves with. But I think it's going to become a lot more embedded in the real world as well. I think that's another really important thing. Augmented reality, this will lead in many ways. So I think the metaverse it will fuse with the real world. In our law and framework, we have Digiterra, which is the digital world. We have Terra, which is the analog world, and Metaterra is this blended world. So I think that's more the future I see, a blended physical digital reality, rather than us all being in this digital reality 24/7. I think that we'll go in there when we want to escape for full immersion, but we'll bring the digital world out into the physical world around us more so.
Wow, I totally agree with Dele. We may not totally confident about what exactly the future metaverse will be, but I had the experience. So the first time I installed ICQ, onto my desktop PC, and talk to a stranger somewhere in the world. So you feel so excited, that moment. And then I'm not sure whether you heard of an app called iPhone, internet phone on the desktop. So I was the early stage user. So you saw somebody, a stranger, with their family, and I with my family, and we chit chat, for half an hour, for solely because of curiosity. How can we do this? I think our grandfather also enjoyed a lot when they firstly talk over the telephone. So in the past, you just talk to a stranger and then you do not have to responsible for what to talk, because after a few minutes you hang up and then you go for another one. So those were the old experience. But as Dele said, the immersive experience will make our conversation like now, I think we may not know each other before, but if we keep talking and if we keep exchanging ideas and opinions, and then in different worlds or different means, then our friendship will build up. Or on the other hand, we might end up hate each other. So it's somewhat like more close to the real life conversation or experience. So the future metaverse, for sure, to me, is that our relationship, our conversational or feeling or whatever, real life social connection will be more solid than the past. So the same roadmap, like the first telephone conversation and the first internet video conversation we experience, and then in the future it will be on the now we have these bulky goggles, but maybe in the future we only have a pair of glasses like my one. So that's what I believe, and I'm looking forward to that time.
Okay, thank you. And nowadays we see most of the metaverse are related to games. If you have to predict, or in your opinion, in the traditional economy or business, which will be the next one, will be the next mover into this metaverse to export expansion or for other adoptions? What would you guess? Just want to guess your opinion on that.
We play game every day, everywhere. So just doing traditional business, it is not playful, or it's sometimes boring. So with that immersive experience, I think we can build something, we can create value, we can trade as if we are playing games. So I'm not saying that game first and then followed by what the other industry. I think gaming will be immersed into the other industry. So we learn by entertainment. Okay, so and then we speculate, as if we are playing a computer game. So I think gaming, like technology, will extend its footprint to the other industries. So that's my belief in.
Okay. Besides games, what other industry would you guys think will be the next one in line to jump into this metaverse, and you'll be flourish?
Yeah, so this is actually kind of like where I like to jump in here. There's a number of different industries that I think will really begin to adopt metaverses or AR or some sort of combination of both. As I mentioned before, I think social media is sort of the next big change that will need to take place. People will want sort of that immersive experience when it comes to sort of their Twitter experience versus sitting there just scrolling for hours. And everybody is going to have their individual wants or needs in sort of a quote unquote metaverse. You look at something like social media, the same thing happens. If let's say you want sort of that almost picturesque perfect world, you go to something like Instagram. You want to go do much more of like gaming. I guess you might be like the Facebook, or you want to go yell at the top of your lungs, you go to Twitter and spout off 30 tweets in a row to explain sort of your feelings on a particular subject. So social media is one big one. I think the other big one is actually like shopping. Especially for when it comes to like augmented reality, you begin to see it a little bit already with like I don't know if you folks have ever heard of like Roche Bobois or IKEA, BMW. They all have sort of AR apps already, but as things continue to become more and more realistic, versus having to go into the store to see how a specific outfit looks on you, you'd be able to like turn on your phone or look into your glasses, as Emil said earlier, and it automatically places sort of that dress, that t-shirt. And I'm a guy that doesn't leave his house. Like I leave my house, once a week sort of idea. So being able to see, hey, does this, shirt, hide sort of my belly that I've been slowly accumulating is a nice thing to be able to do. Does this shirt actually go well with my receding hairline or my big ears? Stuff like that is kind of the things that I'm looking for. So shopping, social media are my two big things that we'll expect to see over the next couple of years.
So in the past, you dress up in the changing room, and then when you come out, you ask your mom, you ask your girlfriend, "Hey, am I looking smart?" So in the future, you dress the same way with your avatars, and then you ask the whole world, "Am I smart?" And then you got a rating. That's the experience we are looking for. Yeah.
But talk about anxiety inducing, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree. I think retail is definitely a big one, and I think social. It's actually I think Shane, you're right. Social is the big one. The other one that I think is that will come very close, and I think it sort of sits in the middle of that in some ways, is just media. I think film, TV. I think we're going to have new sort of viewing experiences, and it's going to be really interesting. You imagine someone like Netflix really kind of bringing themselves into a metaverse experience, or cinema, kind of experience. Esports obviously is very much in that space already. I think
there's a big player in the media world right now that is starting to get heavily involved.
Yes.
Heavily involved.
Yes.
Which one is that?
Yeah. To me, sorry.
Look up the person that put in the patent for proof of watch.
Okay. Right. Interesting.
Yeah. To me, it's education. Okay. Say, imagine today's classroom layout is very restricted. So imagine if there's a metaverse classroom, and then you can always ask the professor from MIT, from Oxford, that we share the same classroom. So I think that the knowledge can be transferred in a more effective way. And then not only Web 1.0 to Web 3.0, so the immersive experience between the students can also be regenerated, because using Zoom it looks good, but we lost a lot of environmental feeling or conversation between the students. So in the metaverse, we can recreate this one with a lot of simulation. So I'm not talking about knowledge transfer, like literature or the other one. So we can learn how to play better golf. We can learn how to do a skateboard better, in the metaverse. That will be quite different experience, and I can learn together with the pros. Okay, so in Hong Kong, I cannot see Djokovic, okay, for example, because it's quite far away, but I can play tennis every single day with him, okay, in the big group. So my skill can be upgraded, in a different experience with all the fans. So I think the next one, the easier to adopt, is somewhat like the classroom, is somewhat like a new way to learn something together, in a big group.
Yeah, meeting and sort of that workspace environment as well is obviously another big one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. Thank you. I guess anything else you guys want to talk about the metaverse and the games? Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think Emil's really touched on a really important point. I think actually education generally is going to dramatically change, and metaverse will be a really important part of that. I mean, when you kind of start to think about NFTs and, attestation, but also customization, right? The ability, and, you start to, because metaverse really is like it's a sort of omni technology, right? It's one that brings in all, AI, decentralization, crypto, AR, etc. All of this into a big glue. So I think that the whole thing around immersive learning and learning through play as well, that's all going to change quite dramatically, and that's sort of what we do with metaKnyts. The whole purpose of our comic franchises is to kind of get people questioning through storytelling, but then learning through play. So it's really about how do our mission is around teaching people about data sovereignty and data ownership, but you teach people what that means through play. And that's partly in terms of the actual gameplay. Like in our game, you have to come in with a particular data set, you have to take it through this journey and deliver it into this temple of truth at the end. But you also have to connect your wallet. You have to be able to load your NFT. So you're learning how this space works through play in that regards as well. I think that's going to be a really powerful new framework. And as Emil said, you can get the best lecturers in the world. You can start to imagine things like Khan Institute, and you can really scale. If you're a phenomenal lecturer, well, you can reach 100,000 students rather than 100 students, right? And that's going to be really exciting.
I want to add one point. It's the assessment of the competence level. So in the real world, you have to sit in the examination. You have to write your thesis, okay, so that you got your certificate. But in the metaverse, who cares if as long as everything can be logged onto a trust system, which is the blockchain, I do not have to get the certificate, from kindergarten to a university. As long as, the subject perform by creating a lot of evidence on the blockchain. So if I want to hire a programmer, I don't care about, whether he's from MIT a lot. What I care is the evidence that she or he make over the past 10 years. So if I can access to those evidence, or I can use AI engine to access those blockchain evidence, then create my own version of certificate. So I know, what kind of people, what personality, what skill sets I need. So that's the very powerful tool. As long as we did our class or learning in the metaverse, and then the assessment will be quite innovative in the future. So in the real life we cannot do so, but in the metaverse, with the help of IoT, with the help of blockchain, with the help of Web3, so on, I think maybe in 10 years time, I will hire my programmer using different methodologies.
Yeah, you probably don't need to see or interview this person. You just still, via a metaverse avatar or just electronic identity.
Yes or no? Maybe it's just a robot at the end.
Hey, but if that robot's doing good work, Emil,
who cares?
Sounds like a bunch of free work. No sick days, no vacation.
R2D2.
Start demanding pay themselves.
For me, it's just going to be an exciting, probably next 5 to 10 years. See exactly where this metaverse whole thing takes us. I do expect to see some massive shifts over this, like I said, decade or so. So buckle up, everybody.
No, I agree. I mean, and I feel like the next sort of 3 to 5 years, and I think this stuff is going to start happening a lot more quickly. I mean, you look at the participation of big brands in the metaverse, for example, this stuff is coming fast. But I think the next sort of 3 to 5 years is going to be all the stuff that, is going to be like foundational. And it's kind of all the stuff that we're thinking about now. But once we have that in place, I think is when the real innovation is going to start. Because I think, it's sort of like we can't imagine what this can unleash. It's going to, I think the way that we see the world around us, the physical world around us will change. I think the metaverse could be a really dramatic impact on environmentalism, for example, and just understanding environmentalism.
Yes.
And really kind of connecting with the real world in a much more material way. So there's a lot of, we even touched on it earlier, that there's a lot of concern about us becoming more introspective and lost in, separated by the metaverse. But I think there's also the potential for the metaverse to connect us to the physical world much more tightly and much more completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agree.
Awesome.
Okay. It's our open discussion. Anything else you guys want to share? Discuss about the metaverse or the games, or your view about the crypto crash recently?
Yeah.
My portfolio's taken a hit, but I've also been slowly but surely putting in a number of different buy orders. So yeah. When bear markets are when people get rich, or sorry, bull markets are when people get rich. Bear markets are when people get wealthy. So I've been trying to take that.
So that's why I want to bring in one thing about the central bank digital currency. Say, of course, China supposedly is the first one, in a sizable country who introduced CBDC. But I do believe that the other countries will follow, including European Union, UK, Singapore, and the rest. So what does it mean? The conventional form of money will move themselves into the metaverse too, because as long as we digitize the legal tender, from paper form to the server or mainframe to server, form, and now once they are using the same technology called blockchain as what we are facilitating the metaverse. So the tokenization, the tokenomics of the metaverse will link seamlessly with the traditional world. So I believe that that will speed up the development or to create the value. My opinion is that I live in Hong Kong. I grew up in Hong Kong. So what's Hong Kong? Hong Kong is a place bridging the West and the East. Then Hong Kong become one of the financial center, so-called. So if we can create something, I believe that's the CBDC, which can connect the virtual world, that whatever we play to earn something, that if we can hold that CBDC in the metaverse, and I can transfer it to the real world, vice versa. So that will be such a phenomenon, I'm expecting.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think, for me, if you put it in really simple terms, see, if the government is basically distributing money through CBDCs, which potentially means it can disintermediate banks and actually engage with citizens directly, which based on governmental need for power and inevitable greed, it makes that somewhat inevitable. But what it drives is the proliferation of wallets and people using the crypto infrastructure. And once that happens, then everybody's on the crypto highway, and it easily goes mainstream, essentially. And I mean, there will be battles between decentralized currencies versus centralized CBDCs, but that kind of is less important. That, well, it's not less important, but it's what the CBDCs will do is just drive mass adoption of crypto. So even if you're kind of decentralized maximalist, you can only look at it as a good thing, because it's going to drive the rails of crypto into mainstream society.
Exactly.
Take off.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Mexico is also doing their own, right?
Yeah, everybody plan and they have their roadmap, but somebody will be faster. I personally believe that the European one will be the better one eventually, because European consists of 20-something countries, so it is decentralized, already. So they need such a mechanism to maintain their currency system. So if the European one is in place, so we don't care much about the personal security or whatever, because it's decentralized naturally.
Interesting.
Interesting. Well, thank you everyone. I think today's discussion was great. Thank you for everyone to participate and share your opinion and thoughts and ideas about how this metaverse will look like.
Yeah, I love it. You bring my experience of Doom 2 back. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll be as doomful.
Those good old days.